Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your afternoon or morning, wherever you may be. My name is Will Devlin. I'm the VP of Marketing here at MessageGears, and I'm happy that you joined us to talk a little bit about what we uncovered in our 2021 B2C Digital Marketing Trends Report. A lot changed last year in the way we all worked. From how we had to pivot and try new things and adjust what we were doing, not just as marketers and technology providers and whoever, but as people, right? And one thing that was very constant and actually accelerated that we noticed was the extent of which on the B2C marketing side, digital messaging was heavily relied on to engage customers and prospects, even more so than it had been before. And so what we wanted to do was seek to understand how the pandemic and all of the events around that affected marketers that served really large consumer-facing brands like the ones MessageGears works with as customers, what we term super senders, and then how those organizations plan to tackle this new reality as we continue and progress through 2021. So what we did is we partnered with a company called Upwave. They are a brand intelligence platform based in San Francisco, and we interviewed 151 B2C marketers in late January, early February of this year. And we limited the participants to, they had to be B2C consumer-facing marketers, at least manager level and above, and they needed to be a part of those super senders. So they needed to have their brands needed to make at least $100 million in annual revenue, and their email marketing volume needed to be at least 5 million messages per month or 60 million messages annually. This report is linked in here in the handout section. You can also, of course, find this at MessageGears.com. You'll get a copy of it afterwards. So we're going to make sure that you get your hands on it if you have not done so already. So what we wanted to do and how we've broken out the results here and how we'll talk about this over the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so as we walk through it is we wanted to understand the importance of cross-channel messaging for organizations, for super senders. We wanted to see what their volumes look like, not just during the pandemic, but what they look like before the pandemic and what they think they're going to look like this year. And then really get into the total impact of 2020 and the expectations coming out of that for 2021, which I think there was some really interesting things. I'm going to ask you guys and see if there's at several points during here to see if it aligns with what you're seeing or what you're expecting as well. So we will have a few polls that we'll launch throughout here. I'd love for you to participate. And then if you do have any questions, you can submit that question in here, and if we don't have time to get to them all at the end here, we can certainly follow back up afterwards. So we'll start with uncovering what the importance of cross-channel messaging for super senders was. The percentage of the organization's sales that come from digital messaging efforts, and you'll hear this throughout, but digital messaging in how it was asked is email marketing, SMS, and push messaging. So outbound messaging efforts for marketing purposes. Quite a few respondents here, anywhere from 40 to 80% of revenue comes from these efforts. And if I had to dig in a little bit further, I wouldn't expect that this is direct attribution. I would expect that this is one piece of the mix that's used to drive those sales. I don't think I think there may be some super senders that press send on a campaign or have some triggered messaging go out, and that accounts for 40 to 80% here. But I also think that digital messaging as a part of the mix is really important, and I think that it is a touch point that when attribution's laid on top of things, that they look at the sales and they say, look, yeah, 80% or 40% or whatever that number is in between of those people that ended up making a purchase, we're getting some sort of digital messaging from us. Bottom line, very important to revenue for large businesses here. How important is digital messaging relative to other marketing strategies? And we also asked how important is digital messaging relative to the business goals of the company overwhelmingly in both cases, extremely important. Nobody said it was unimportant, which is great to hear. I don't think is all that surprising, but obviously digital messaging is an extremely important part of the marketing mix and helps companies, even at the highest level, achieve their goals. In terms of budget allocation, the percentage of the overall marketing budget, anywhere from excuse me, 25 to 50% of the overall marketing budget is spent on digital messaging, and that includes staff, that includes technology, that includes the actual volumes being sent. And how does that compare to the organization's digital messaging? How does that compare to other budget items? A lot of them, it's either a little bit more or it's really in line with other things like advertising and offline. And the factors for success. So what's the most important factor in making digital messaging successful? And we, this is a one answer question here. So 28.5% the top answer, the right set of overall marketing technology, and 25.2% the second importance, easily accessible customer data. So those two things, you're going to see that theme kind of carry throughout. Being able to access customer data and have the right technology to take the most advantage of that is very important and very top of mind for a lot of marketers and a lot of super senders. Other answers here: a talented, cohesive team to put it all together, support of great partners and agencies that can help you execute, and of course buy-in and support from the executive team. But marketers know that being able to meet and exceed consumer demands start with being able to get that data and invest in the right tools to capitalize on. So that brings me to our first poll, and I'd like to ask here, what does this group think? And I know we've got a mixture of people here from not just super senders, but from other places, providers and small businesses, B2B companies. But what do you think is the most important factor in making digital messaging successful? So if you can take a second here and fill out your right answer, we'll give it about 15 seconds, and then we'll see what this group thinks. All right, just a couple more seconds. People still voting. Good participation, thanks y'all. All right, I'm going to close the poll. Last votes in. All right. So in here, let's see here. Overwhelming amount of people on this call. Easily accessible customer data is the most important thing, followed by either the right set of marketing technology and a talented and cohesive team to put it all together. Not surprising. I know we have some MessageGears folks and some folks that are aligned with how we see the world here. But really interesting. I think the theme here very clearly is customer data, and being able to access that is extremely important. All right, so let's then carry over into volume. So understanding the types of volume on a messaging side that we're really dealing with, and again, looking at some trends of how that has progressed and how it looks to continue to progress. In terms of how many people are getting the messages from super senders, the audience size is really pretty large. So you're looking anywhere from 5 million records to up to 40 million records here, and in some cases even more, but the majority are somewhere in this 10 to 20, 20 to 40 range here. That's a lot of people getting messages. And I think on the right side, what's really interesting to me is that these messages are happening overwhelmingly at least daily. So super senders are sending a ton of marketing messages. And I guess it's not that surprising. If I look at my own personal inbox, there are a ton of marketing messages I get from brands, and I don't think I subscribe to that many, but I get quite a few in my inbox every day. This is quite a change from when I was on the brand side probably about 15 years ago, where we would consider, maybe we send 2 to 3 times a week. Daily and multiple times a day is obviously the norm, and there's only a very very small sliver here that's sent weekly. So we're sending a ton of email and mobile and SMS, and we're also sending that to a ton of different people on the supersender side. The volume trends here are really interesting. Volume has increased over the past several years, and marketers are expecting that trend to continue. So if you look at the red is the kind of the floor. Again, remember we surveyed people that sent at least 5 million email messages a month. So that's 60 million annually, and these are annual numbers. So if we look at this, the red is, excuse me, 60 to 80 million messages a year. The yellow is 80 to 100, blue is 100 and 120, and the dark blue is more than 120 million. You'll see that the lower edges of this, the 60 to 80 and the 80 to 100, are going down as you progress left to right here, and that the higher volumes, the 100 to 120, and I think most importantly here, the more than 120 million are increasing. So what I think is really interesting too is the projections for 2021 here. Almost a quarter say they're going to send more than 120 million messages this year. And if you look in just 2019, less than 10% said that they were going to send that volume. So the volume is increasing, and marketers expect that to increase. And just how much is it going to increase? Well, we asked, how soon do you expect to double the number of digital marketing messages that your organization currently sends? And this is pretty crazy to me. By the end of this year, over a third said that they were going to double by the end of this year. So very quickly, and another half, 52% said within 2 to 3 years we're going to double our volume. So we're going to get, we're already sending a ton of messages. We're going to get a lot more messages being sent and out into people's inboxes and phones and everything, and that's really that's quite remarkable to me. And so this is the outlook from these super senders on yeah, we're gonna double down. Digital messaging is working. We are growing our lists. This is a great way for us to communicate with our customers. All right, so let's dive into the impact of 2020 a little bit and see how that actually affected marketers at these really large brands. So at the beginning of 2020, marketers were thinking of, I would call these relatively routine enhancements and improvements to their approaches. So I think the overwhelming number one here, improved personalization. I bet if we asked this question every year over the last decade, that's probably up towards the top. Now, in context, saying I want to improve personalization 10, 15 years ago meant something much different than it means today. As marketers get more sophisticated and as consumers expect us to do more. But marketers are like, yeah, we're going to go into the year, we're going to improve personalization, we're going to modernize our digital messaging tech stack, and we're going to consolidate customer data, among other things. We're going to add new channels and do some things like that. And of course, then the challenges heading into 2020 were different. So heading into 2020 here on the left, driving new business was a top challenge. Re-engaging lapsed customers was a top challenge. Thinking about technology investments. I need to change my email service provider. I need to figure out how to get away from this disconnected and non-trustworthy customer data. That's a big challenge. And then coming out of 2020, obviously the priority and the challenge was much differently. And how do we best communicate here? What's our angle? What's the best way? Are we overloading people? Or what's our messaging strategy? Do we for some businesses, there was no real online component. For resellers, you could push people online to transact, but there were some businesses, if I think of an Expedia or an Open Table, you're not booking a lot of travel during a pandemic. You're not having people do restaurant reservations. So there's a lot of different things that they needed to maneuver around with, and how to best communicate was the top challenge. What I also found really interesting here was we asked about the concerns at a human level that people had. On the left side, how concerned are you about consumer overload from digital messaging? The overwhelming majority here obviously concerned, at least somewhat, 41% very concerned. And concerns about the people that we're marketing to being in different financial situations because of the pandemic. some people made out pretty well during the pandemic, and it was a benefit in some ways, but a lot of people did not. And being concerned about, pushing messaging into their inbox, and making a problem worse, or making them feel terrible about their situation, was certainly top of mind. What I found really interesting about this personally was on the left side, we're saying we're very concerned about consumer overload from digital messaging. But a couple charts ago, we talked about, in the next 2 to 3 years, we are going to be sending even more. We're going to double our volume. So there's this really interesting thing at play here where marketers are saying, we are concerned about digital overload, but everything we're seeing from the numbers and the investments we're making, we're still going to be sending a ton of messages. And so I do think this is a valid concern. And I also think that everybody that filled this out is contributing to that as well. We're planning on sending more stuff, and we're concerned about how that's going to continue to make it harder to get in front of people and to stand out. So I'd like to ask this group, how concerned are you about consumer overload from digital messaging? So this will be our second poll here. If you can take a few minutes here, or a few seconds, we'll give it about 20, 25 seconds. How concerned are you about consumer overload from digital messaging? Couple more seconds. Most people voted. All right. This I also find really interesting because it somewhat mirrors. I think there's a lot more concern from this group that's on the webinar today about consumer overload, but it's around the same. About almost 10% said they're not concerned at all. Like, we can easily ignore, or just kind of pass by, archive a message, whatever. For a lot of Gmail users, it goes into a separate folder. It's very easy to ignore. I can go find it when I need it, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of concern here from everybody on overload of messaging, which I found really interesting. Thanks again for participating in that. So what changes are people making, or did people make, excuse me, on regarding their strategy in 2020? Obviously, the top thing was adjusting their messaging around COVID, which we talked about. New customer outreach program was improved, budgets were increased, and re-engagement strategies were launched. So there are some things like basic blocking and tackling that a lot of super senders got a lot better at doing. And the lessons learned for these marketers: data access has to be a priority for marketing teams. Personalization is more important than ever. Again, that theme, those top two things we're hearing quite often. Mobile push is worth a major investment. It was 43% said that. And email is still our highest ROI messaging channel, is also the top answer. So in order to meet the rising consumer demands, the marketers understand that relevance and timeliness matters greatly, and they've got to be able to put their customer data to work. All right, and so let's kind of round the corner here and talk through what marketers are expecting going into 2021. Marketers are going to continue to focus on the best way to message to their customers as the world starts opening back up, and as we feel like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel and it's getting bigger. So again, the top answer here in terms of the strategy changes, figuring out the best way to adjust messaging around COVID. And again, that messaging is going to be different this year than last. Last year, it was a lot of, we're all in the same boat. The news was not positive at all throughout the year. And I think there's a little bit more optimism as you'll see this year go forward, that as businesses start to open up around the country and as things start getting healthier, messaging will get a little bit more upbeat. Increasing budget, which is a great theme we've seen here. Launching a new customer outreach program and consolidating data in a modern data warehouse was also a big change. Excuse me. The success. What do you need to be successful? The top answer here: I need more money. I need more money. I need better access to live customer data. I need technology that helps me do that. I need a better, more responsive email service provider. I need more staff, and I need a new CRM to help us manage our customer database. The really great, I think, thing here is we asked, how likely is it that you think you're going to receive the executive support necessary to achieve these things? And 74% said very likely. Another quarter said somewhat likely. So virtually everybody feels like, yeah, we're going to get that support from the executive team. Digital has the full backing of everybody, top to bottom, within our organization. Around the budgeting side, people are spending millions of dollars on messaging, and that includes tools, people, everything here. So most people are spending between $1 and $10 million, spending between $1 and $10 million annually, and they expect that number to increase in 2021. Which, again, going back to the top goals and the wishes, is great, and is great to see. So people are expecting, yeah, we're going to send more messages, and we're going to get more support from executives and more money to be able to do that, more staff. On the increase side, most people expect it to grow anywhere from 25 to 50%, which is very significant. And if the budgets are decreasing, it's mostly by a small amount. And then on the resources side, how many hours a week do you spend on digital marketing? There's quite a variance here, but 34% said 10 to 20, another 20 to 30 hours, about a third there. So anywhere from from a day to a full week worth of work on strategy and execution here. That number also expected to rise, almost identical to the rise in budgets on the right side there. Brands are going to continue. One of the trends we see here too is continue to migrate their data management to a modern cloud infrastructure, like a Snowflake, like a BigQuery, Redshift. We've seen this trend over the last several years. Last year, especially, we saw that accelerate, and then it's a little bit more mainstream now. Snowflake had a huge IPO last year, very huge IPO. And so we asked, how will your organization move to a modern data warehouse? One of the big challenges we've seen is that people want a consolidated view of their customer data and an easy way to access that. About a quarter said they already use a modern data warehouse, but 40% said they plan on investing in one this year, which is great to see that movement towards that is continuing. And another quarter said they're likely going to invest in a modern data warehouse here in the next 2 to 3 years. And then finally, on the technology side, which recently acquired technology are you most excited about as it pertains to digital messaging strategy? About a quarter here said integrated cross-channel technology. 16% said modern data warehouse or an in-house database. Render on open technology like a movable ink, also very high on people's list. So being able to use the data that they have and be able to create these really unique experiences across channels, surprise and delight consumers, is top of mind for super senders. So as we wrap up here, what did we learn? And these are the takeaways that I had, and I think you'd agree. Digital messaging is more important than ever, and it sounds very cliche to say, but the data backs that up. The actual send volume data backs that up, and the survey data here from super senders also backs that up. Brands are doubling down on digital investments. You're seeing a lot of brands coming out of 2020 and going into 21 saying, yeah, we're going to decrease budgets in other places, maybe in-store activities and things, but we are doubling down on digital. Marketers are expecting their budgets to go up dramatically, and obviously their send volume to dramatically increase as well. And with that increase in volume and budgets, but it's not just that we want to send more dumb messages, right? We want to improve personalization. We want to be extremely relevant. We want to create great experiences, not just great campaigns and promotions, but great experiences as we capitalize on new expectations that are not going away, right? The things that we got used to during the pandemic, the conveniences that brands that were nimble were able to put out there. I love some of those things, like buy online and go pick up at the curb or something like that. So that is going to continue to rise, and that's going to require organizations to make moves relating to their data, which we've seen, right? So how marketers can access that data and how they can activate that on that data. So I hope this was interesting and useful to you. Again, the report here, 2021 B2C digital marketing trends, is available in the handout section in the webinar here. We're going to send you a copy directly, so you don't even have to worry about taking any action if you don't want to. You can also go right now to MessageGears.com, look under our white paper section and resources. You'll find it there as well. And while you're there, learn a little bit more about MessageGears. One of the things we believe in strongly is that if you've made that investment in a modern data warehouse like a Snowflake, BigQuery, or Redshift, that should be your database of record. You should do everything off of that. You shouldn't have to send that data elsewhere to do something with it, to activate it. You've already made this significant investment. Let's just activate it directly from the source. So MessageGears is a customer marketing platform that allows you to segment and activate data directly from the source. It allows you to do cross-channel orchestration and campaign management directly off of your live data warehouse, and also enables to power tools like Movable Ink directly from that data. So you can do render time open time renders and things like that directly off of that live data without bringing down your website or bringing down your data warehouse. So learn more about what we offer at MessageGears.com, and let's get started together. I really appreciate everybody joining us today. And if you have any questions, you can hit us up on Twitter at MessageGears. You can hit me up at Devlin on Twitter as well. And would love to answer any more questions that you guys have. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.